Hi, my name is Braganowski.
And I'm Austin Morales, and you're watching The New Gamer On.
And today we'll be talking with Adam Davis about their new tabletop RPG called Critical Core from Game to Grow. We're really excited to see what they have to share with this. It was a very successful Kickstarter project, and it's making very, very good progress. And we're here to talk about what it's doing, not only to help kids, but also to help the world get into more accessible tabletop RPG games. So let's dive in and talk about it.
And as always, if you like this content, please like, subscribe, and bang that bell, because we know you want to. Thank you.
Adam, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. It's been a while.
It has been a while. Yeah, we were talking before we started recording. I think we had you back on around 2016. And
it was right when Game to Grow was being launched.
Yeah, so a lot has changed. So since then, give us a little bit of a update. Tell us about Game to Grow, first of all, for those that haven't heard of you before, haven't heard the last podcast we had with you, and what you guys have been up to in the last several years.
Sure, yeah. So for those that aren't familiar with Game to Grow is a 501c3 nonprofit organization. We're based in the greater Seattle area, and our mission is the use of games of all kinds for therapeutic, educational, and community growth. What we're most well known for is our therapeutic social skills groups using Dungeons & Dragons and other role-playing games, though we also have therapeutic social skills groups using Minecraft, and we've used Magic the Gathering and other tabletop games of all kinds. We serve youth and teens and adults, and in the midst of COVID, we've expanded to serve worldwide. So we have people from not just the United States, but also we have participants in Denmark and Australia and Malaysia and Ireland. So it's been a really fantastic opportunity now for us to serve a much wider population. And also we've, in addition to the direct services, our mission also includes the training and education for other facilitators to take this intervention style to their own communities. And then we also, part of our mission is to raise the awareness of the life-enriching magic of games.
Critical Core. I want to talk about that a little bit. That's Kickstarter you guys worked on, you put together. That's basically your own game that you've developed to just expand and continue to grow, Game to Grow, and the idea, the training and all of the methods that you guys have put into play. How's that going? Can you talk a little bit about what that looks like and what the ultimate goal is with Critical Core?
Sure, yeah. So the backstory of Critical Core is, I mentioned the training program and how even before our formal training program, we were doing trainings and workshops and things. And the struggle with training new therapists specifically in how to use tabletop role-playing games to help their clients grow is that we actually can give presentations about and even talk about the theoretical orientation we have, our model for using role-playing games systematically and intentionally to help people grow. We actually were keynote presenters at the Washington Association of Marriage and Family Therapy, having an auditorium full of therapists. We were talking about the power of intentional role play. And one of the things that happened afterwards is everyone was like, this is awesome. I am so excited to do this with my practice. I have a whole slew of youth that I want to use this with, or adults that I want to use this with. How do I get started? How do I learn how to play Dungeons & Dragons or Pathfinder? And anybody who's played these games know that it can be hard to actually learn how to play, much less be a game master, much less be a good game master, much less be a good game master with a sensitive population, much less be a good game master for a sensitive population to achieve an outcome, right? So we had that was the work we had in front of us, was to meet that objective 5 steps down the road. So Critical Core was launched in order to cut out some of those steps along the way. So the game is fundamentally designed to be accessible, but not just accessible to a neurodivergent population, because that's sort of the target demographic we see as the player base. But we also designed it to be accessible to new facilitators and new game masters who don't have the time or energy to learn how to play any of the sort of A-list titles, or even some of the lesser known titles, because that's a lot of work on the therapist's part or the teacher's part or the community member's part. So Critical Core is it's really a simplified rule system. and there is no player's handbook. So any player just gets a character sheet. We took out the character creation process. So there's 8 character sheets and 5 levels. And you start at level 1, and you get your new character sheet at a new level, and that is how the game progresses. The game master, we have a game master's guide and a facilitator's guide. So the game master is responsible for learning the rules, but the rules are pretty simple. It is based on the open gaming license from 5th edition, so it's sort of a 5th edition light kind of game system where we still have D20 rolls, we still have stats. We took out the skills system and folded in some quality bonuses. It's a really nice way that we have actually adapted a lot of the 5th edition that we play in our groups. So we've taken a lot of the stuff we've already played with and then put it into a boxed system. But then what's the vision for it is that also in there is a facilitator's guide. And that actually talks about how we structure our program at Game to Grow. So it's a lot of the same things we cover in our training program in terms of the structure of a session, how we orient towards a social flourishing model instead of a social deficit model, how we use the specific in-game scenarios and target them. So we have in the box, we also have modules that are the whole storylines we play with. We've got three that are coming with the box, a couple that were stretch goals. And the way that the modules are set up, every encounter is a 2-page spread. And it's sort of a semi-linear narrative structure where it's based on almost like a script writing or like scene design. Because once again, my background's in drama therapy. So I was an actor for many years. And I wrote scripts and things like this. So it's really a narrative design element here, where the 2-page spread for every single encounter then has one of the core capacities that I was speaking about earlier, for each one of those in-game scenarios. So it'll say, this is an opportunity to work on regulation. This is an opportunity to work on planning. This is an opportunity to work on perspective taking. And then it'll have a little explanation of that. It'll lay out the what the objective is of it, what the obstacles are, what the tactics might be, have a little extra opportunities to increase the challenge or decrease the challenge, or increase the time or decrease the time, extra ways to role play something. And then each two-page spread is a different encounter. So you can go through the 45 pages of this encounter one at a time. And then so it keeps the game master from having to memorize everything.
Yeah.
And you can kind of just look a couple of steps ahead along the pathway. The goal for it is really the sort of Microsoft model of, when Microsoft was just a couple of people in a garage, their vision, their sort of mantra was a computer on every desk.
Yeah.
And the goal for Critical Core is a game in every school, a game in every hospital, a game in every clinic, a game in every house. So we want more people to be playing. So we don't want the barrier to be that games are too hard to learn. And if they play Critical Core, they can use our facilitator's guide with other games. So if a game master gets good at being a game master and wants to elevate or shift into other genres, if they want to play 5th edition, they can, because it's very similar to 5th edition. They can go into Pathfinder, they can go into Monster Hearts, or they can go into whatever other game system, because the core principles behind the facilitator's guide aren't tied to the actual game itself as much as they are tied to authentic relational social play, like I spoke about earlier.
Now, is this something that it's you designed it for developing social skills, being work with therapists and things like that, but is this still at its core, no pun intended, I guess, to something that just anybody could jump in and play as well? Do you feel like there's enough here for just gamers that want to just find something new that's lighter than D&D to, hey, let's get together and play this smaller game and then still get narrative focus in it and still have a good time with it?
That's the goal.
Yeah.
The goal is absolutely for anybody to be able to play it. And a lot of the times that when I play casually, I'll play with people who aren't as familiar with D&D or similar games as myself. I started playing in the mid-90s, so I'm very familiar with the sort of asymmetric nature of it and some of the things you just have to learn through experience. And so Critical Core is a great game because it's sort of introducing these kinds of concepts, and anybody who wants a rules light, a D20 sort of system could totally play it. The narrative design of it is something that I think is one of the more exciting parts about it, that makes it it reduces the amount of work that the game master has to do. Because once you introduce this concept of narrative design, it actually empowers the game master to also be able to improvise, to sort of, there's a lot of things in the facilitator's guide around collaborative homebrew. So it's a way the game master doesn't have to do everything and plan everything and remember everybody's name. There are points in the storylines where it's like, we don't have a name for this character. You're going to make the name of this character with your group. Those kinds of things make the burden on the game master much lower and the collaboration much higher. So every player feels like they're not just sort of a passive recipient of what the game master is executing, but they can then stay engaged and come up with ways to contribute to not just what their character does, but the whole story. There's moments in the narrative design where it's like the players are going into this town to investigate, searching after this dragon who's disappeared. And the whole encounter, the whole pre-encounter activity is everyone at the table makes up something that's happening in this town because there's a big festival that's happening. So you ask your players, like, what is something they're eating at this festival? What is some way that they're celebrating this particular event every day? And then everyone gets to make up, well, they're eating, like duck pate on crackers. Okay, awesome. Like, why are they doing that? Well, it's because this town has a lot of ducks in it. Okay, cool. So then when you start the scene, you go into this town where there's ducks everywhere and everyone's wearing, big billed hats because they're duck friendly, village or whatever it is. And then it's like this sort of reduction in anxiety and increase in just like youthful celebration and playfulness, which I think is good for anybody, especially right now when the world is kind of a shut down place. Yeah. So when we can engage in that sort of like puckish, mirthful relationship with our play, I think that's the outcome right now we're going for.
Yeah. So what are you looking at now? I know that's been a lot of, obviously, COVID and everything like that has mess things up, and there's just a lot of things that come to making a game. Like, what do you have a launch date or window in mind for Critical Core at this point?
We don't have a formal date, and part of that is, as we launched Critical Core, our idea was solid. We'd had nearly a decade of experience doing this, so it wasn't a question about whether this methodology worked or that we could put it all in a document to share. And largely the documentation has been written. It is production is something that we had no experience with as a we run a nonprofit company oriented towards services. A lot of production design, product design, those kinds of things, navigating international manufacturing and shipping and sort of the timelines of that were learning curves for us. So one of the biggest things we learned is that we couldn't do it ourselves. And so we have Maya Nordrum, who came on as our product manager and project manager for us. It was a huge help because we're creatives, and sometimes creatives struggle with deadlines.
I know.
And perfect is the enemy of the good sometimes with some of the things, because like layout, right? We part of our team is in Hong Kong. Gavin Chang has been a fantastic contributor in terms of the layout design, and it's been fantastic to be able to have this international sort of conspiracy to put this awesome product together. But also that's a lot of moving pieces, especially as, I'm an executive director of a growing nonprofit here, much less doing a lot of the writing and design for this work as well. So been a big learning curve in terms of that, not to mention that like there are artists who we had lined up and we got art from them for some of the early work that we did. And then their portfolios filled up because there are a lot of people commissioning art right now. So their timelines just moved out 6 months. We can't wait 6 months to find artists anymore. So we needed to shift around. We got some great work from Brandon Gillum, who is a good old friend of mine, who's of Runehammer Games. He designed the index card RPG system. A good friend of mine. So he stepped in up to do a lot of the art for it. But this is a lot of like moving pieces and trying to align them in the right place. It's like playing Space Invaders. There's like so many pieces, and you're gonna like fly around and try to hit the right pieces at the right time. And if you don't, they're shooting back at you, so you got to dodge this and not get hit by that. So it's been a fantastic labor of love, I will say that, and it's getting ever closer all the time.
Yeah,
we're doing constant updates on the Kickstarter page about it. We are behind our deadline right now, but we are working constantly on making it closer and closer to that deadline. We're getting our final layout designs in place and final art contracts figured out. So we're moving ever closer.
Yeah, I've been really impressed with the. I remember seeing like the card designs or something. I think it was different cards you guys had that you like showed the case of design for. I was like, this isn't. I mean, this is high production quality. I mean, it looks really really sharp, and it's you never know what you're going to get with board games sometimes, because like there's some that like. I mean, again, like you mentioned, like you guys haven't done a game before. I mean, as like creating a game and coming from up with that from scratch, but like the people you pulled together and the way that you brought everything together, it looks very very just high quality, across the board. So I've really been impressed with the updates and everything that you guys have done so far. So
thank you. That was one of our goals. One of our goals was to make sure this didn't feel like a kid's game and didn't feel like a cheap. Yeah. We a lot of the players who we envisioned when we were designing it were, kids on the spectrum, kids who are marginalized for some reason, and we didn't want it to feel like it was a cheap game. Or there's plenty of educational games out there that are not fun at all, or therapeutic games that are not fun at all, that use like you flip over a card and that's as far as the game is. Like you flip over a card and you reveal something about yourself. Like that's not a game. That's just a card. So we wanted to make sure this felt like a real game that was actually very fun, and leveraging that for the insight, growth, and change, not having a gamified social skills training program or a gamified therapy self-revelatory exercise. This was first and foremost a game that is fun and engaging, and then also has all of the potential for therapeutic growth.
Yeah, it's awesome.
I saw this on a shelf at my local game store. I definitely go over and check it out and be like, "What's this about?"
Yeah, and
it looks amazing.
That's part of our goal. I'm so glad you said that, because we're working with retailers. Also, we haven't gone to production yet. We have our production company lined up, and so we're going to be doing drop shipping and things like that with them. But we're now also talking with retailers to get them in stores, because that is how we can have the most impact with this, is not just our Kickstarter audience. We want this to be something that people can continue to purchase. We're working on the logistics of making sure that it is on demand. People can purchase it in perpetuity. And this is something like, as a service-oriented nonprofit, we don't have the experience with, so we've had to reach out and cultivate the right person to join our team to support that program, which Maya has been.
Well, I'm excited to see where 2021 and 2022 and beyond takes you all. I mean, it's been amazing just to see from 2017 to now, like where things have gone, and I'm excited to see that COVID hasn't been. I mean, it's obviously affected everybody, but it sounds like it's definitely had some positive impacts. Obviously COVID's not a positive thing, but just like you've been able to reach more people with this because of having to shift and quickly adapt and stuff like that. And a lot of people are having to figure out like, okay, how do we adapt to this new world? Like people are going remote now, and like there's, more companies are opening up to these things. So there's a lot of things that people are starting to look at, like just rethink how they do everything. And to see all the new programs and everything you guys have going on is really awesome. So where can people, like if anybody wants to learn more about you all, wants to find out about what programs are coming in, Critical Core, I'm assuming that's still something they can invest into?
The pre-order store is closed, but if you go to our website, you can learn more about it, and you can sign up to be notified when it's finally
retail
released. And out for digital download, especially because we'll do digital download before we'll do a physical release. Okay. So if people want to get access to it digitally, they can do that. They will be able to do that before. We don't have to worry about all of the manufacturing. Right. So that's going to happen much sooner. So if people want to learn more about Game to Grow, they can go to gametogrowth.org. That has access to everything. You can see the menu at the top. We'll tell you where you can find out more about our training program, about the groups that we run. I also encourage everyone to go to gametogrowth.org/support. Because we are a 501c3 nonprofit, and if you liked the ideas of anything that we're doing or any of those ideas we have in the pipeline, you can make a donation there. You can also just change your Amazon to smile.amazon.com, and all of the stuff you're already purchasing will give a small bit of proceeds towards Game to Grow. There's lots of different ways you can support our program there. And if you want to just stay informed, you can go to gametogrowth.org/newsletter, and we send out not too many emails that keep you posted on what we're up to. We're also on the socials at Game to Grow, and that's Game TO Grow. We're on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram.